Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is Jill Hope, and you are watching the video, The Energy of Receiving. And today, this is actually one of the first videos in a series that I'm going to be doing to help you to create what you want. Because if you get right down to it, probably every single person in the world, to some degree, struggles a little bit with having what you want. Sure, we've created a lot of things in our lives that we feel proud of and happy about, but there's always the next thing. And that's a good thing because that is part of the human experience. We are actually innately wired to desire more. It's part of the law of life. I mean, that's what nature is all about. When you look out into nature, nature is constantly growing. It's constantly becoming more. And because we're a part of nature, the same thing's happening to us. So, there's always that something, that next something that you want to create. And we tend to get a little bit stuck on the things that sometimes feel bigger, and maybe that equals harder to create. And I want to help make that a little bit easier. So if you've got big goals for this year, if you've got something that you're working on, my hope and my desire is that after this series of calls that we'll cover over the next week to a week and a half, my hope is that I give you some nuggets that allow you to really crack open your awareness around how you might be getting in your own way when it comes to having what you want. So today we're going to focus on receiving. And the reason why I'm starting with this is because receiving is something that a lot of people struggle with. And people have told me before or made the statement, yeah, I have a hard time receiving. Have you ever said that? I have felt that way at times as well. Like, what's the problem here? Is it just that I don't know how to receive? And I think people do kind of feel that way, like, what is receiving? And what I've discovered over the years in working with a lot of people and in researching and studying this idea of creating what we want for my own life, what I've realized is that I don't think it's so much that we're not able to receive or we don't know how to receive. I mean, there's definitely reasons why that might happen. But I think there's a bigger issue, and it's really around this idea of we don't really know what receiving is. We don't really understand what it means to receive. We have an idea of what it means, but we really don't understand it. We don't have that awareness. And because of that, what it means is that we have certain habits that we do. It's just part of being who we are and living our daily lives that actually block the receiving process. So we're working hard, trying to create this thing, and then it doesn't come in. And it's not that it doesn't come in because it wasn't meant to happen, or God doesn't want you to have that, or you're not worthy. It's because we are putting blocks in our own way because we don't understand this idea of receiving. Now, again, this isn't the only piece that gets us stopped, but it's the piece I want to start with today, okay? So if you bear with me over the next few sessions that we have, where we come together over the next week and a half, I'm going to lay out more of the things that we do to actually get in our own way and stop ourselves from being able to have what we really want, okay? So pretty exciting. So let's start with this idea of receiving. And I want to make sure that I got some notes here because I have a lot of stuff I want to tell you that's really important. I don't want to miss anything. Yes. Before I get rolling into the content, here's what I want to share. In terms of how long today's session will be, I was thinking about this and I don't really know. I don't know how long these sessions will be. They could be anywhere from 20 minutes to up to an hour. It will not be more than an hour, though. I can tell you that much. For the future calls, I would say book yourself an hour to be totally present and listening. If we get done a little bit earlier, that's a good opportunity to journal on some of the things that I open up for you as part of the lesson, okay? In terms of when are the future classes, we will be doing one on Monday and we'll be doing one on Thursday at this same time, okay? The same time of day. So put that in your calendar. Monday, I think it's the 18th, we'll be doing it at 2 p.m. Central, which is 3 p.m. Eastern, and on Thursday, 2 p.m. Central as well. We may have a fourth call. I haven't fully decided on that yet. If we do, it will be the following week, probably on the Monday or the Tuesday, probably the Monday. Okay, so that's what our plan looks like here for the last couple weeks of January. Okay, so here's the truth about what we're talking about here, and it's really about the truth of life, is that every action that you take has a consequence. Every single thing you do has a consequence. If you don't like if you don't like what you have, basically, if you don't like what's showing up in your life, or there's an area of your life where it seems like I'm not really creating what I want in this area, then there are some actions you are taking that are not producing what you want. And Einstein sort of was referring to this idea when I forget the exact quote, but it was something around this idea that if you keep doing the same thing, you keep getting the same result. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? If you don't like the result, you have to change what you're doing. There's something that you're doing that isn't working. It doesn't mean, though, that there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that, you don't deserve it, or, you're whatever. All those stories we tell ourselves, wipe them out of your brain, because it has nothing to do with those stories, okay? But it's something that you're doing. By the way, side note, we're going to talk about the stories next week, probably next Monday, our next session here, okay? So just put a little note there that if you've got an issue with your stories, and I'm going to tell you right now, we all do, you definitely need to hear that call. But going back to what I said, every action that you take has a consequence. So we need to look at what are we doing or what are we not doing that is getting in the way of what I want, okay? Again, it's not about you. It is on a deeper level. I'm going to get to that. But it's specifically what the you that you're being is doing, okay? There's the connection. I'll talk about that more as we go through this today, okay? So when you discover what those things are that are giving you the result that you don't want, and you tweak them so that you start getting what you want, that's where your power is. And so my goal, as I said earlier, over this course of this series, is that you build an awareness of what these things are for you. Because if you have the awareness, you can change them. Where we get really stuck and it feels like life's not moving forward is when we don't know what we're supposed to change. And we start spinning our wheels and we do more of what we were doing before, right? We work harder at what we were doing before. But we're just going to get more of the same result when we do that, because nothing has really changed. You're just doing the same thing harder, more often, whatever, right? So that's what we need to change. And that's what I hope you take away here, is that when you open up your understanding, your awareness of how you're operating in your life, you have all the power you need to change it. And that's a pretty exciting thought right there. So let's open up your awareness around this idea of receiving. So when we look at receiving, and I said earlier that a lot of people, they'll tell me, they'll say, well, I think, I think they're just kind of guessing sometimes, but they'll say, well, I think I might have a problem receiving. That's kind of how they always say it. I think I might have a problem receiving. And the thing is that, as I said earlier, I don't think that many people have a problem receiving. I think it's that people don't really know what that means. Like they don't include receiving in the equation of creating what they want. And receiving is a huge part of the equation. It's like saying that 2 + 2 is 4, but you leave out one of the 2's. You'll never get to 4 if you don't have both of those 2's in the equation, right? That's kind of like what it is for receiving. So many people are not taking into account, when they're working on something they want, to open themselves up to receive. So I want to talk about this by focusing on the energy of receiving, hence the name of this particular class. The energy of receiving. What is the energy of receiving? It's really, I sum it up in two words, basically: expectation and gratitude. The energy of receiving is really expectation and it's really gratitude. So what do I mean? When it comes to expectation, it's fully expecting that your outcome will be there, that you will get the result. If you don't have that expectation, you're not in the energy of receiving. So an example is, like, let's say you're sitting on your couch and all of a sudden you get the urge to get up and get a cup of coffee. What do you do in that moment? So you have a desire, I think I want a cup of coffee. You probably immediately then get up, go into your kitchen, open the cupboard, and pull out a coffee cup and pour yourself a cup of coffee, right? Or if you have to make it, you'll make it and pour it. There's no drama. There's no lack of expectation. When you decide you want a cup of coffee, you fully expect that that can happen, and it does happen for you. And then you go and you move towards it. You take immediate action. Okay. That's what expectation looks like. There's no drama. There's no worry. There's no stress. Like, oh my God, I don't remember where the coffee cups are. What if I can't find my coffee cup? There's none of that. You just get into immediate action and you go get the coffee cup. Your expectation creates the pathway for you to take immediate action. Now, where a lot of people get stuck is, and this is the whole, stuck not knowing how to receive and not even knowing that this is a really important part of the equation, this expectation piece, is because they immediately go from desiring what they want to worrying about how it's going to happen or whether it's going to happen, or do they have what it takes to make it happen? And all these doubts creep in. And suddenly you're not in expectation. And when you're not in expectation, you're not in the energy of receiving. And when you're not in expectation, you are actually putting up a block in your energy field. The thing is literally right at your door. That coffee cup is in the cupboard. It's waiting for you. But if you don't expect to get it, and if you don't take the action because you expect it, you don't take the action to go get the cup, you will not get it. Okay. So expectation, it's such an important part of receiving. You've got to expect that you're going to get it in order to get it. That expectation creates the awareness of the actions. If you don't expect it, you will not know what to do. That's where we get stuck in. Well, how do I do this? I'm not sure what I have to do next. Being in the energy of expectation allows you access to the actions that will create that. Okay, does that make sense? Good. All right, I'm going to assume you're saying yes. Okay, so I mentioned expectation. The other part of the equation when it comes to receiving is gratitude. I mentioned gratitude. Now, gratitude is very different, but very important, because gratitude is what helps you when it's hard to expect that you can actually have something. This is where gratitude comes into play. When you're sitting on your couch and you want to get a cup of coffee, you may not actually go into gratitude, even though I believe we should, because if all of a sudden you had no ability to ever get that cup of coffee again, you'd be pretty darn grateful if you were able to suddenly do it, right? Very grateful. So, but we take for granted things like that in our lives, things that seem to be easy for us, things that we've already set up for ourselves. We then take it for granted. So we can get into expectation very easily, but we may not get into gratitude. So there may not be any emotion around it. When there's something you want that you haven't already set up for yourself, and you need to be an expectation around that you will actually be successful at setting it up and you will have that thing in your life. Gratitude can really help you keep going and follow through in the actions that you need. And here's the reason why. Because expectation alone, in my opinion, expectation alone does not cannot keep you moving forward when doubt creeps in. You need another tool to support you through the doubt. And what I have found to be very, very true, especially for the big things for me in my own personal life, and one of the things I really coach most of my clients around is this idea of using gratitude as a tool. So when you bring gratitude into the picture, when you start to feel that self-doubt, and you start literally singing praise for having that thing, it puts you on the same energy frequency as that thing. When you actually think about the thing and you imagine that it's in your life now, it's the best feeling. You do feel grateful. It's like, oh my God, if I had that right now, this would be so amazing. Like, this is exactly what I'm wanting to create. And I can just feel it. And as I'm saying this to you right now, I have like full body goosebumps right now. Like, I can really, this is just the truth of us. When you can imagine having that thing and be grateful for having it in your life, and we can all do this. In fact, let's all do this right now. I'm going to invite you to join me in this. Just close your eyes for a minute, because I really want you to feel this. Just close your eyes for a minute, as long as you're not driving. And I want you to imagine the thing that you want. Just pick one thing, just one thing. And picture discovering that you have just created it. So whether it's something that has just been given to you, or it's something that you have been working towards and it's just happened, imagine discovering that, oh my goodness, it is here. I have just created it. And see yourself with it. See yourself with it. Imagine yourself having it. How would you feel in that moment? What is that feeling that you have when you have it? Tune into that feeling. Is it gratitude? Is it peace? Is it joy? Maybe it's a combination of all those things. So hopefully you've been able to feel that. That feeling opens up for you the awareness of, what is my next step here? And it keeps you on the path of receiving. So the expectation that it's happening and the feeling that it's happened are those components, those critical components when it comes to receiving. Now, we do something very interesting, because we set up habits in our lives that stop us from expectation, and they stop us from being in that energy of gratitude, okay? And this is really important, because a lot of people they don't have that awareness to realize that these particular habits that I'm about to call out are actually stopping those parts, those energies of gratitude, or those energies of receiving from coming in, okay? So this is something that I really want you to become aware with in your own life, because when you can see this, how you're doing this in your own life, you'll get a glimpse into how you might be blocking yourself from having that thing that you want, okay? Or making it a lot harder than it needs to be. So, quick little story here that I want to be sure to tell you, because it really kind of shows how I used expectation and gratitude to create something that for me at the time was a pretty big thing. So this was about 3 years ago, and I got this desire. I had it for a while, but I never really acknowledged it until around this point in time, 3 years ago. And the desire was, I wanted to take my family on an amazing trip to Italy. And wow. It was one of these things where, you just feel it in your heart. Like, my soul had to go, and my soul had to bring my family. I wanted to gift that to my family. I wanted that to be a contribution that I could make to our family. And at the time in my business, it was the same business I'm running today. I was kind of like this with the income, like up 1 month, down 1 month, up 1 month, down 1 month, and it wasn't consistent. And that pattern was enough for me to cover my, like, what I needed, like pay all the bills and that sort of thing. But I didn't have a whole lot of extra, because even when I had those peak months, I had to save that, because if a down month came, I needed something to fill that, right? So it was a little bit like that. And I was not able to scoop enough off the top to, say that we're going to take this trip. And when I say that I wanted to take this trip, I didn't want to just like do it on a bootstrap. I wanted to do it the way I wanted to do it. And I like beautiful experiences, and I like to stay in nice places, and I like to have, beautiful meals. And I really wanted to do it the way I wanted to do it. That was part of what was really important about this desire. So I knew it was going to cost quite a bit of money that I didn't currently have. And I was going to have to create that money over and above what I was already doing in my business. So upon getting that desire, and I looked into how much is it going to cost and all that. So I had a budget. I immediately shifted into expectation, because here's the thing about receiving. Because people don't really understand at what point in the manifestation process does receiving come in. And the answer to that's a great question if you are thinking that. The answer is it starts immediately after you get clear on your desire. You immediately move from clarity around your desire to receiving mode. There's nothing in between. Once it's clear, once that has been put out to the universe, you now need to step into receiving. That's another way that we block ourselves. We don't realize that. You are immediately in receiving mode the minute you let that desire go. Okay. So once I got clear on what this trip was and that I decided we were doing it, I'll talk about that in a minute. So I decided that this is happening, and we're doing it this summer. And I got that level of clarity at the end of June, and I wanted to take the trip at the end of August. Okay. So that's not a lot of time, especially when, you're planning a trip and you have to fly transatlantic. You've got to book the tickets, and it's summer and it's busy and crazy. So there were, I had to really get on it. I had to get on it quickly. So I set the desire in motion by saying yes to it. And then it's like, okay, what do I need to do next? I knew that I had to move into receiving immediately, which meant to me expectation and gratitude. So I fully expected that, we're going to Italy at the end of August. I didn't know how, but I knew we were going, and I knew we were going to do it the way I wanted to do it. And I was certain on that. I had clarity on that. I had a firm decision around that, all important components of this whole equation. My expectation, what that did for me is it had me step into immediate action. Because if you're really going, you have to start planning it, right? So I immediately started looking for accommodations in the cities that I wanted to visit. I started looking for transportation. We were going to be taking trains here and there. I was looking into, there were certain tour type things that were really important to me that I really wanted to take, and certain places I wanted to visit. So I started researching everything, because then I found out you have to book early to get in to see some of these wonderful sites. So it was, booking thing. I started, literally booking things, booked the hotels, all of that. And now bear in mind, I didn't have extra money for this. Okay. So I was doing this over time, but I had to start. So I think the first thing I booked, just thinking back to this, how I did this, first thing I booked was the hotels, because I didn't have to make an immediate down payment. There was, I think it was like, I don't know, I had a few weeks before you had to make the first payment. You make the first payment as a deposit, and then there's a second payment that you have to make by a certain date. So I either I didn't have to make the first, I think it was I didn't have to make the first deposit yet. So I thought, okay, I'm going to book these and, and I'm going to work to build the money to pay that deposit. So that's what I started doing. So places were booked. I found these amazing
Oh my
apartments and
gosh.
things. And then I was starting to, make some additional money, right? Because I had made this decision. So I was getting creative ideas of how I could serve in a higher way. And I was
Wow.
immediately implementing those ideas, and they were bringing in the additional funds that I needed over and above my bill money.
Wow.
The next thing I did is, because these additional funds were coming in, that's when I started to book the tours. And I had been researching them, but I hadn't paid for them yet. So now I was able to pay for those tours. So my trip started coming together. And I specifically remember when I bought the train tickets to go from one city to the next, that for some reason, when I did that, I thought, this trip is happening. Like, this is really real. And I was feeling an immense amount of gratitude that I was making this happen. Like, my dream, this
Yeah.
goal it's coming together. And
Wow.
so I'm working like that, and I continue moving forward, and I continue having inspired ideas and implementing them immediately and bringing in additional money. And actually, as a side note, which is an extremely important note to me, I was helping a lot more people because I was coming up with ideas that people needed this support. And so I was like putting myself out there more to be of a higher level of service. So it wasn't just that, oh, now I'm able to create the, live into this goal that I've set for myself. I was actually helping a whole lot of other people by stepping more into my gifts and what I could do for people. So that in and of itself is absolutely amazing when I think about it. So fast forward to we're in August. The one thing that still had not been covered was the airline tickets. I also didn't have money for, I didn't have the cash for how we're going to be able to eat when we're there, so,
Wow.
minor detail. But for some reason, I felt really confident about that, but I was not feeling confident about the money for the airline tickets because I didn't have it. And I had gotten to a point where everything I was trying, like nothing else was working in terms of bringing in additional cash at that time. And
Wow.
we were 3 weeks out from the trip. I needed to make these tickets happen now. And so I was in a coaching program at the time. I always have a coach. I've like never not had a coach pretty much. A few small gaps, but not really. It's really, really important. If you're trying to do something big in the world, you got to have support. You really do. So anyways, that's just a side note, but it's something I was really grateful that I had given to myself because it helped me in this situation. So when I got to that where it felt like a roadblock and I started to doubt, am I going to be able to make this play out? I mean, I've booked all these things. I don't want to have to cancel everything. I'm going to lose some money if I have to cancel some stuff. I was starting to feel that doubt creeping in. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about when you want something and it's looking like maybe it's not going to happen. So I talked to my coach and I said, okay, here's the situation. This is my dream. It's starting to come together, but I need to get the plane tickets now. And she said to me, no worries. And she's very intuitive too. She just like, when she said this, I'll tell you what she said. She said, what about your husband? I'm sure he'd want to make you happy and buy these tickets, right? Here's the thing. He was fine with me planning this trip, but he was not going to pay for any of it. Like, that was our agreement. If
Oh my
you can
God.
come up with the money, I'll go. Like,
Wow.
let's go. And that's
Wow.
not. I mean, he's extremely supportive, but he had plans for what money he had. We both pay the bills here, and so he did not feel that he had anything extra to put towards this. So he was all game to go and was supporting me making the money to go, but that's it. There was not going to be anything coming from him. If we were going to go, I had to make it happen. And so when my coach said that, I thought, my immediate reaction was, well, no, that's off the table. That's not going to happen. And then I took a step back in myself and said, wait a minute, you're paying her for a reason, right? She has a level of expertise that I don't currently have. She's very intuitive, and there's a reason why that was her feedback to me. She could have said any number of things. That's what she told me. So I thought, okay, I need to be, what's the point of paying a coach if I'm not open to their feedback? So I thought, okay, I'm going to be open to that, and I'm just going to let that sit with me. But what it did for me is it allowed me to stay in a grateful mindset. It allowed me to stay in expectation. Okay, so I stayed in the receiving mode. I only went out a little bit. She brought me back. So I stayed there. And the interesting thing was that was right before, it was like a couple days before we were going to my son's baseball game. And so it was out of town. He was in a travel baseball team. And we were all like in a light and happy and fun mood. We came home from the game. We opened up a bottle of Prosecco. We were having fun. We were laughing, joking. And I mentioned to him that, I've got most of the trip planned, but I really need to get the airline tickets. I haven't gotten them yet. And I'm just not sure how I'm going to be able to pull this off in time. We're running out of time here. And all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, I got this idea, I think because I was open. I got this idea that was like a bet with my husband. And I made this bet with him, not thinking he'd say yes. And that if he lost, he was going to pay for the tickets. This is what I said. I did not think he'd say yes to this because he was so resistant to paying anything for this trip. He immediately said, sure, it's a deal. And I won the bet. He immediately got on, found tickets, a really good price, like half the price of what I expected to pay. And our trip went off without a hitch. I know that's kind of a long story, but there's parts in there that are so important for you to connect with when it comes to receiving. Because the other thing I want you to notice in that story, besides the fact that I was staying in expectation, I was taking immediate action, and I was feeling the gratitude when it seemed the most dire, right? When it seemed like it wasn't going to happen, I was staying connected to my gratitude. The other thing to notice here, this is so important, is that it happened in the 11th hour. And here's a secret for you. Most things, at least when you first get the hang of creating really big things in your life, they don't happen until the 11th hour. So if you stop before you get to the 11th hour, or if you let doubt creep in before you get to the 11th hour, and so therefore you listen to the doubt and you stop taking actions, or you fall out of gratitude because you think it's not going to happen, it cannot happen. Every time we move out of expectation and out of gratitude, you move immediately into lack or resistance. Lack or resistance. You will not bring in what you want if you're in lack or resistance. It's not congruent with your energy. That is one energy, lack and resistance. Expectation and gratitude, totally different energy, okay? So when you leave one, you go to the other. And then you don't get what you want. So if you notice yourself having the doubt, what you want to say to yourself is, if I play with this doubt, if I let this, play in my head, I'm going to be in lack and resistance. And lack and resistance just pushes away what you want. Okay? You cannot allow yourself to stay there. You cannot allow yourself to go to doubt. Remember the 11th hour thing. There was this really interesting story. I'm just paraphrasing it here, but I believe it's in the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And he tells this story about, this is back in the 1800s during the gold rush in the States and, out west. And there's the story of this guy who had been digging for gold and just, he knew that this area, the spot that he was in, he just felt it in his bones that there is gold here. And I forget how long he spent, but he was just working at it and working at it and digging, and he had his expectation and he had his gratitude, and he was like going in there, and he just wasn't finding the gold. And so finally he got to the point where he's like, I don't think it's going to happen. He allowed the self-doubt to come in. He disconnected from his higher self, his higher intuitive knowing, and he left the area and gave it to someone else. He's like, look, I'm done here. I don't think gold's here. You can move in. Well, would you believe the person that he let come into his area and dig for gold literally tapped into gold 3 feet from where the other guy was digging? He was 3 feet from gold. That's what I mean by the 11th hour. If you give up in the 11th hour, if you give up when you're 3 feet before, in front of the gold, or 3 feet away from the gold, you lose. You don't get what you want. So this is really, really important to keep in mind, and to remind yourself when it feels like, oh my God, when is this going to happen? If you stay connected within yourself, connected to your desire, when you're connected to your desire, you're in gratitude. When you feel your desire, you're in gratitude. Reconnect to that gratitude, reconnect to that desire. Be in expectation. Know that you are just 3 feet from gold, that you are in the 11th hour. Don't quit. So that's a really, really important thing to get when it comes to receiving. Because the minute you move out of that, you're in lack and resistance. Okay? So there are 3 common habits, extremely common habits, especially for women, I have to say, that get in our way of being in that energy of receiving, and actually instead being in resistance. Okay. So as I explain these 3 habits to you, notice which of these you do. Okay. You probably know if you have the habit, you'll recognize it, but you may not have realized how it actually puts blocks and resistance in your path when it comes to getting what you want. Okay. So the first one is putting limitations in front of your desires. So I was working with a client not too long ago, and the thing that she really wanted was a balance in her life. Has so many irons in the fire, so to speak. She's managing family issues, and she's managing a business, and she likes to do lots of different things in her business. So she's managing all the different things as part of her business, and she wanted, and then she's got a lot of hobbies and things that just her heart wants to do. And so she was trying to create a balance that worked for her, and it was just driving her nuts. And she just felt overwhelmed and exhausted and no energy, and just things weren't moving forward. And so we were talking about this, and she would start to explain something. And she was talking about the balance. And I said to her, well, tell me, because balance can look one way to me and one way to you and one way to someone else. And that none of our ways may match, right? So I wanted to understand what balance meant to her. When she said, I want balance, what does that mean? And what she said to me was that, as I brought that up, she immediately was telling me of all the ways that she couldn't, she didn't know, and that she couldn't create balance in her life. So the issue is that there's a disability that she has in her life that makes it harder for her with certain things. Okay. So she kept, every time I asked her what would balance look like, she kept bringing up this disability, this limitation in her life, and telling me how that was stopping her. And so I paused for a minute, and I said, I want to reflect something back to you. And I shared that what she was doing, just as a mirror, like this is what you're doing. Every time I ask you this question about what you want, you're telling me why you can't. I'm in no way invalidating her disability, but when we all have limitations, okay? We all have limitations. When we put our limitations in between where we are and our desire, you immediately go into resistance. And that keeps you out of the energy of receiving. Interesting thing that happened is when I told her that, and she's done a lot of her own personal growth work. So, she's dug deep. She's dug deep. She's done a lot of work. Very experienced with that. Knows herself pretty darn well, right? But there's always a new layer. That's the thing. So I put this in front of her and I said, look, this is what you're doing. And that awareness immediately shifted her. And what she said right back to me was, oh my gosh, I don't really know what balance would look like, but I can imagine what balance would feel like. And in that moment, she moved right into the energy of receiving. Because once she stopped looking at her limitation and just put that to the side, it's not discounting it. It's not making up a lie that it's, not there, but it's just moving it to the side. She was able to step into the energy of if I had balance in my life, how would that feel? It's kind of like what I had you do at the beginning here, where we tuned in to our desire. She tuned in to that feeling she wanted, that she felt balance would bring her. And that was enough for her to make a shift into that receiving energy. When you get into that receiving energy, then all of a sudden, she's now open to come up with creative ideas that will help her create the balance that she says she wants. Things that are in line with that feeling she wants to get. So that was really powerful for her. And that's something that we all do to a degree. We put our limitations in front of our desires. Well, I can't do that because I've never, spoken on video before, or I can't do that because, I don't think I'm a very good writer, or I can't, there's always the I can'ts. And the I can'ts are dream killers. They really are. And they take you immediately out of that receiving energy. As long as you put I can't there, you're never going to receive it. Okay. So that's a habit that you really want to observe in yourself. How often do I put my limitation in front of what I want and make that more important than the thing I want? And could I just lift it over to the side of me and step into the energy of what I want? Could I dare expect to receive that for myself? Am I willing to go there? Am I willing to say that big yes to what I want? Am I willing to be grateful for it before it happens? It requires a lot of trust, doesn't it? That's another piece of this. We're not going to talk about that today, but we will talk about that in one of the later calls next week, okay? So that's the first habit. The second habit is, and this is something, it's funny because I teach this stuff all the time, and I know I've said these words before, but for some reason, I didn't even recognize until very recently that I was doing it in my life with respect to one thing that I want. And it's, it's not surprising. I was trying to think, what am I trying to say? It's not surprising that this one thing I still haven't successfully created. I now figured out why. It's this habit right here that I'm going to share with you. The habit is you can't just want something and expect to get it. Okay? This is really, really important. And we do this all the time with stuff. We really want things. I mean, you all want things. We know that, right? I mean, sometimes we don't know exactly what we want, but we know there's things we want. You cannot just want it and think that it's going to happen. You cannot just want it and move into the energy of receiving. It's not enough. Wanting it is not enough. Do you want to know what else you have to do in order to move yourself into that energy of receiving? Here it is. You need to claim it. You must claim it. And here's how I was doing this in my own life with this one thing. So it felt like kind of a big thing. I'm not going to share it today. I will at some point. Okay. But it felt like a big thing in my life. And it's something I've wanted for a long, long time. And like I said, like before each start of the new year, I have a little ritual that I go through where I will sit in meditation and I will get quiet and I'll have my candle and I have a journal that is specifically for my goals. That's all I write in there. And each year I add my goals to that same journal. And so I've been doing this for probably 7 or 8 years, is right, maybe even longer actually, writing my goals in this book. And then at the end of the year, I go back and I check off the things that I achieved. And what I'll also do is I'll then look back into the previous years and see if any of the things from previous years ended up happening. Because what happens sometimes is we put a timeline on ourselves that says, okay, these are the things I want this year. But everything has its own timeline. And we need to respect that. So sometimes things don't happen. You don't achieve a goal in a year, not because you did something wrong or you're not worthy of it. Sometimes it just has to do with the timeline of that thing. It wasn't ready to be birthed into your life in that year. It doesn't mean it's not coming. So that's why I look back in previous years and see, well, did any of these other things that hadn't happened yet happen? And very often they had in the current year. So anyways, I was noticing this year when I was looking back to the previous years and thinking about this one big thing I really want that hasn't happened yet, I noticed that nowhere in any of the years, including this current year looking forward, did I write that thing in my goals. I made it a want. In fact, it's one of the greatest desires I have. And I never wrote it down. I didn't claim it as something I was going to create. And I'll tell you why. Because I was looking at, okay, what am I going to create this year? That's what I think every year. And because this thing feels kind of big and kind of like it might take longer than the current year I'm in, I wouldn't put it in my goal list. And, maybe that was because you want to get to the end of the year and check off all your things. Good girl, Jill, you accomplished all these things. And I sort of wasn't sure that I would actually accomplish it. So I thought, I'm going to leave that off. It's a desire, but I'm not going to put it in this year's goal list. Let me tackle some of these other things first. Well, I did that year after year after year after year after year. Never putting it, meanwhile, checking all kinds of things off all those years' goal lists, but never wrote down what I wanted. I never claimed it. You can't have it if you don't claim it. You must claim it. You must say yes to it. When that desire comes in, when it knocks on your heart and says, this wants to be a part of your life. This desire wants to be expressed through you, through the unique you that you are. When you feel that, if you don't say yes to it, you will never get to have it. And it will go somewhere else. It will go to someone else. That desire will just move on because it wants to be expressed. It wants to be expressed by you. But if you don't claim it, if you don't let it into your heart and then let it out as this is one of my intentions, it just can't manifest in your life. So think about that. What in your life, what desires do you have that you have not yet claimed for yourself? Because wanting it is not enough. You have got to say yes to it. And even if it means you write it down as a goal and you take steps towards it, because remember, writing it down has a responsibility. Claiming it has a responsibility. It means then you move into receive, which means expectation and gratitude. Expectation means I'm going to take immediate steps towards that. Even if your immediate step is doing some research about it, that is enough. That's moving it forward. You do have to take a step. So great responsibility comes with claiming your desire. This is all a very divine process. Desire is an extremely divine process. It's us co-creating with the universe. You're not in this alone. Your desire is not just you. It's much bigger than you. It's you in co-creation with the universe. But if you really want something, that something wants you. That something wants to be experienced and expressed through you. And so to have that, you must claim it, okay? You must claim it. All right, here is the third piece. Let me just say one final thing about the claiming it. And this is just a simple analogy, just so you really kind of see what I'm talking about here, about, what's the difference between wanting and claiming. It's kind of like if, you want $10,000, say, for something. Like, oh, it'd be so amazing to get this $10,000 so I could do X, Y, Z. And you're telling a friend this, like, oh yeah, I really want to get this $10,000, and because I want this thing that it will buy, and it blah, 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 it'll do this for my life and this for my life. And your friend says, oh, well, gosh, I would love to help you with that. And I actually have some extra money, and I want to gift you the $10,000. And they go and they take out their checkbook and they write a check. I don't know if people still write checks. I don't know, but we're going to pretend they do. And they write this check, and she says, here you go. You have to take it out of her hand. And if you don't, if you don't take it, and she's like, here's the $10,000, here you go. You must claim it. You must say, oh, yes, thank you. Yes, it is mine now. You take it from your friend and you say, thank you. You're in gratitude. And then immediate action is you're probably going to go to the bank and cash it, right? So you can get the thing. But you are accepting it. Well, it's the same thing with your desires. When you feel that desire, the universe says, okay, here, you can have it. But you've got to claim it. You've got to say, yes, thank you. I will have this. See how that connects? Okay. All right. So the last habit here, and then we'll get ready to wrap up. I see that we're probably going to be at our full hour today, because when I start talking about this stuff, it just keeps coming through. So the third one is to, and this is, oh my gosh, with women, and I'm terrible with this, or I was, let me put it that way. This is something I've really worked on over the years within myself. The habit that blocks our resistance, habit number 3, is settling. Settling. Oh, girlfriends, I mean, do we settle or what? You can't have what you want if you settle for less. And what happens for a lot of people, and this was my problem, is I would settle in the 11th hour. So I'd get to that 11th or maybe the 10th hour. I'd get to the 10th hour, meaning I would do all these things. I would have claimed it. I'm going for it. I'm expecting it. I'm taking the immediate actions. I'm being in gratitude, and it's not happening, which means it hasn't happened yet. It's happening, but it hasn't happened yet. And finally, I'm getting close to when I said I needed this. And so I bargain with myself. I say, okay, well, that's okay, Jill. It's okay if you don't do this. I mean, you're fine. Everything's fine, right? You don't have to. And I talk myself down from my big goal. And I accept something less. I actually fall into submission. I submit to not having it. That's the same thing as not claiming it. We betray ourselves when we don't claim our desires. We betray ourselves when we settle for less than we deserve and want. If you want something, you deserve it. You couldn't want it if you didn't deserve it. You wouldn't feel that feeling in your heart of desiring something if you didn't deserve it. Trust me on that. So if you're not, if you're settling for it, there is a part of you deciding that it's okay for me not to have it. And that is not your authentic self. She is not your authentic. Your authentic self knows that you deserve this and knows that you should not settle for anything less than you want, because you don't need to. So settling is such a bad habit. And I remember my mom, it was just so exciting because I had stumbled upon this settling thing. This was, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago now. And I had noticed the pattern by that time in me, where I would see something I want, and I had the cash to purchase it, and it really lit me up. But I thought, oh, it's kind of a lot of money, and gee, I'm going to get a smaller one of this. Okay, like I really wanted the bigger one, but I'm going to take the smaller one because it's less money. And it didn't light my heart up at all. It wasn't like having the one I really saw and wanted, but I would always go for the lesser one. And so my mom was telling me this story shortly after I realized what I was doing. And I had told her about this. And she was on some trip, and she had seen this gorgeous piece of amber. And she loves amber. And she fell in love with this, but it was a big chunk. It was bigger than she really wanted until she saw it. And then she thought, this is so amazing. I want this amber. I didn't realize I wanted one this large, or this is so gorgeous. And so she wanted this amber, but that voice inside of her, which is probably what became the voice inside of me that did the same thing, was she was saying to herself, oh, you don't need the big one. There's a smaller piece here. It was a lot less money. And just get the smaller piece. And that's what the voice was saying. Just get the smaller piece. And she remembered what I had said to her not that long before this happened. And so she trusted that. And she bought the bigger one. And when she came home, she told me what happened. And she said, I am so grateful that I did this, because I'm so happy now. Like I am just beyond, like over the moon that I have this large piece of amber. And when I look back on it, I didn't want the small one. I'm so glad I listened to myself. So there was zero regret. She was so happy because she listened to herself. She listened to that voice, that authentic voice inside of her. So as women, we really need to stop betraying that authentic voice that knows. We don't need to settle. It might mean we need to work a little harder, sure, but we don't need to settle. We don't need to settle for less than what we want. That stops the receiving immediately. You can't have what you want. You just cut it off the minute you settle. You just can't have it. Plain and simple. So that is what I wanted to share with you today about receiving. And I want to tell you about something that I'm inviting you to join me in if you're interested. I am opening up a program. We're going to be starting at the beginning of February, so in just over 2 weeks, called Authentically Abundant You. And this program, I'm getting goosebumps all over myself when I think about it. I created this program about 3 years ago. And I realize now, I didn't realize it at the time, that I had created it a little bit ahead of its time. And after I did it the first time, I did with a beta group of women. And these women it changed their lives in ways that I did not plan for. I didn't expect some of the changes that happened to these women. But their lives shifted in a huge, miraculous, magical way. And it's all because the program will help you to tune into your authentic abundant self and to listen to that internal voice that we push away based on what we're seeing on the outside. We make that voice small, and we make what happens on the outside of us bigger and more important. So this program teaches you how to know that voice if you can't really hear it. And it teaches you how to follow that voice and listen to that voice so you can live in your full brilliance, and so that you can create whatever you want, because you can. And so it helps you break these types of habits that we're talking about here today. And it helps you to step into the bigger awareness that is you, and that is truth. And the truth is, there is abundance in this world for all of us. And we are supposed to live based on our desires. That is our guiding light. And so this program helps you get in touch with that. So if you want to check this out, I will be sending this out in an email as well, but I have a special pricing that is only available until Sunday. So the normal price of this course is $1,500, and it's 6 sessions, and it's 3 coaching sessions with me. Actually, there's going to be a 4th that I'm adding. So it's 4 group coaching sessions and 6 training sessions that go deep. Like if you think we went deep today, we go deep, okay, to really help you get in touch with yourself. And I give you activities and exercises and things that allow you to experience what I'm teaching you, okay? And we're going to do this program over the next 2 months. So February and March is the container of this program. So you're going to be in a sacred cocoon for that 2 months with me guiding you through to connect with your light, okay? So the special pricing on this till Sunday is just $500. So I'm knocking a full $1,000 off if you say yes now. So where you can check this out and read more about it is ishinekids.com/AAU, capital letters, capital A, capital A, capital U. ishinekids.com/AAU. And that stands for Authentically Abundant You. Okay. So check that out. If you have questions about it, feel free to email me at jill@ishinekids.com. I'm so excited to take people through this program again. The way that the world has been changing, we're more ready for this program now. And it's more like its time has arrived. So I'm really excited to take a group of women and hopefully, that's you if this is speaking to you through this process with me in this sacred cocoon. So check that out at ishinekids.com/AAU. And we'll talk about it more, but if you want to get the special pricing on that, that is only available until Sunday. Okay. So that's a full $1,000 off. It's only $497 for the full 2 months of this program. Okay. So that's what I want to share about the energy of receiving. I hope you found this helpful today. And in our next couple calls, next one's Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. That is 3 p.m. No, I'm sorry, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. I think that's 8 p.m. UK time. And we'll also be doing it some Monday and Thursday of next week. And one of the topics I'm going to be talking about is all about our stories, the stories that we make up about ourselves. Yes, we make them up. So I'm going to peel that apart for you, and we're going to look at those stories. And we're also going to talk more about, what's the other, let me just look it up here. It's really about tuning into who you really are, tuning into that authentic you, and tuning into your natural magnetism, because how you create and how you attract is based on, or at least your ability to create and attract is based on how closely you step into your true self, how much you become your true self. We put a lot of masks and shields up over ourselves that hide the true self from, the world. And when we do that, we can't fully receive, everything that we want, all of the riches that are available to us. So in one of the calls next week, I'm going to address this in more detail and just talk about what that means and what that looks like. Okay. So hopefully this sounds exciting to you. I've got really fun stuff planned, and I look forward to seeing some of you in the program as well, because I would love to take you deeper and really make a significant impact for you. So until next week, take care. If you have questions, send them to me at jill@ishinekids.com. And I look forward to being with you again next week. Take care, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.